Hey y'all! Well, I thought today we'd go down memory lane and talk about my hi-fi experience and my love of hi-fi gear since I was a kid. And started out, my parents had this Sears console. My dad worked for Sears, and so he got this silver-toned big console stereo thing that they put in the living room, and it had a turntable and a receiver all built into it, solid state, and it really sounded good. You know, it was vinyl, obviously, and my parents were, let's say, thrifty. And so I think they owned like 4 albums or 5. Wasn't like there was a lot of investment in music. And so I remember there was a Tijuana Brass, the album that my dad liked. And then we had some Bing Crosby kind of Christmas stuff that we put on for, Christmas Eve kind of thing. And I can't remember, there was a couple of other kind of kids albums, but we didn't have a big selection of vinyl to listen to. So most of what we listened to was the radio. And it was AM FM stereo, and so we would want to listen to music, pop songs or whatever, that we were recording on a little cassette player we had. And it was just a little mono cassette player, and when we were first trying to record it, we were just using the microphone for the cassette player. We were little kids, we were probably 8 or 10 years old, and we were trying to record with a microphone like in front of the speaker, and we hear a pop song come on, and we wanted, it's like, oh, hit record, and we hit record and catch most of it anyway, or they would say, okay, and now we're going to play, and we'd know that we're going to play that song, so we could cue it up and record it. But of course, somebody would sneeze or cough or something and ruin the recording every time. And so I figured out, hey, there's a headphone jack. Why don't we make a cable to go between the headphone jack and the cassette recorder? And so down the street there was a Radio Shack, which they were everywhere when I was growing up. And I went and got a, funnel. We got a plug for the headphone jack and one for the cassette player, and wired it up. And then we were able to record directly from the stereo to the cassette player. And that sounded way better. So then we could listen to music then on our little cassette player. Well, obviously that didn't sound super great, but hey, it worked good enough. So when I got a little older, it's probably about 12, again, went down to Radio Shack, and they had this 20-watt solid state amplifier on sale, and it was just within my budget with it on sale. I think it was about $80. I mean, in the late 60s, early 70s, it's probably around 1970, that was a lot of money. But it was a nice piece. So I got that, had a couple of decent speakers. I can't even remember what they were or where they came from. I think I bought them from one of my church friends. Bought a couple of speakers. And then I bought a 8-track record play deck, which at the time 8 tracks were the thing. Everybody was listening to 8 tracks. And, I didn't know that that's really crappy quality, but hey, that was the end thing. And we had some 8-track tapes that we used in my dad's car when we would go on trips. And so we had a place to play them in the house then. And so I had some ZZ Top and some Leonard Skinner, and I think we had Jethro Tull Aqualung, and had Who's Next to Who. I think I had like 4 tapes that I could listen to. So that was my stereo in my room that I could listen to. And I kept that till I was in my early 20s, and then something happened to it. A roommate tried to hook up some speakers and shorted it out and blew out the guts of it. But yeah, that's another story. So anyway, that was my first real hi-fi system. Oh, and then I also later got a turntable. And we did start buying some vinyl, or I started buying some vinyl, and I realized how much better the turntable sounded than the 8-track tape player. And so, yeah, quit using it other than, recording some tapes off of the vinyl, and I figured out how to do that. And that was kind of a fun thing to do. So that got me through high school. Got out of high school, went to tech school, started working, got my own apartment, went back to Radio Shack because that was where I was buying all my hi-fi gear, and I bought these Mach 1 speakers that were horn loaded. They were really cool speakers. They had, they were touted as having some kind of liquid cooled voice coils, and we were listening to super loud rock and roll back then, and they were great. Never blew them up. Friends were all blowing their speakers up in these realistics. I couldn't blow them up, so that was good. And I still had that realistic amp until it died from my roommate shorting out the speaker jacks, trying to hook up something to it. And then he was like, I don't know what happened. And there were some new speakers sitting there that he had bought, and the amp was burned up. He was like, oh, I didn't touch anything. It's like, oh, come on. So anyway, HiFi Buys enters the picture. And so I was living down in Buckhead, suburb of Atlanta at the time, and HiFi Buys was right down the street. So I went down there and talked to the guy and really stretched my budget and bought this 100-watt Kenwood amp. And it was touted as being a digital amp, which I had no idea what was digital about it. I mean, it was solid state, but I can't imagine there was anything digital about it. But that's everything was digital back then, or that was the big new buzz thing, was, hey, you want digital stuff. And so here was the digital amp. So I got that, and then got an upgrade turntable. And I bought a Belt Drive Techniques. I can't even remember what it was. It was an automatic one. It had, push the button and put the needle down, push the button again and pick it up and park it. It stopped at the end. It was, it was a nice turntable. It wasn't one of their super high-end ones, but it was a fairly nice turntable. And I pretty much run out of money, and so had to get a pretty cheap cartridge for it, which at the time I didn't realize that I probably should have bought a cheaper amp and a better cartridge for the turntable, but didn't know. So used that through the late 70s into the mid 80s, and then CDs came out. So I had these realistic Mach 1 speakers, horn loaded speakers with this 100-watt amp, and we've been playing vinyl, and back in those days we were having keg parties and stuff, and people dancing in the house, and had to put the turntable hanging from the ceiling from chains so the records wouldn't skip when people were dancing around in the house and stuff. And so when CDs came out, it's like, okay, they can't get scratched like all my records have gotten scratched. They won't skip when people are like doing crazy stuff in the house, and let's see what it sounds like. So I was a very early adopter. When I first got my CD player, it was a Kenwood CD player, because I was like, I got a Kenwood amp, we got a Kenwood CD player. Again, got a CD player, got Dire Straits' Brothers in Arms. If you guys were around back then, you remember this was one of the early CDs that was actually produced. There weren't, when they first came out, there was only 2 or 3 albums that were on CD, and this was one of them, and this was like the killer app. This CD was designed to put vinyl under the table. It was that DDD, total digital, from the recording to the production to the playback, and it sounded awesome. Compared to that turntable that I had at the cartridge that I had at the time, this was like a just night and day improvement to the clarity. There was no hiss, there was no cracks and popples with all my scratched records that I had at the time, and I jumped in with both feet. I got rid of all my vinyl, replaced all my vinyl with CDs, the stuff that I liked, and basically the turntable got put in the closet. And so had that Kenwood deck for years. Obviously, it had an early version DAC, and I didn't know anything about DACs or any of that stuff at the time. I assumed wrongly that CD deck's a CD deck. It plays a CD. What could be different with them? So let's fast forward about 30 years to when I really got back into hi-fi gear again, because for years I didn't listen to a lot of music at home. We weren't having parties at the house anymore, and I had other things that I could, smaller little systems that I could play background music on, or just had like a little boom box in my downstairs workshop that I'd listen to music on, and I really wasn't into the hi-fi thing anymore. And so when I got back into it, I saw a Facebook post of a friend of mine that, being in politics, I've got like 5,000 Facebook followers, and I probably actually know a couple hundred of those people, by face, and the rest of them are just people that wanted to follow me. So anyway, this was just happened to be one of the people that had joined my Facebook page for whatever reason, and he posted a thing on Facebook that he builds tube amps, and he's actually on Audio Karma, and we've met and talked since then. But I saw the insides of it. I've always been intrigued with electronics and wiring. When I was a little kid, I had one of those Heathkit 40-in-1 little experiment things that I got for Christmas one year, and you could make all kinds of cool stuff with it. You could make radios, and you could make amplifiers, and you could make 40 different things out of it, which was really cool. And we'd go to the Heathkit and look at their stuff. But so anyway, when I saw this tube amp and saw the inside of it, saw the heater wiring and stuff, I just thought, that looks really cool. I want to learn more about that. So got back into audio, bought some of these RP600M speakers. I bought a little tube amp. It was that little Noob Sound 6P1, and I hooked my old Kenwood CD deck up to it, and wow, it's like, that's different. I don't remember it sounding that good. I mean, I remember hi-fi was good, but I didn't remember it sounding that rich and that real. So it's like, there must be something with this tube amp. And at that point, I had given my Kenwood amp and turntable and everything away to this friend of mine. And so, because I didn't think I'd ever use it again. And I wasn't going to ask her for that stuff back, but I did email her back after I kind of got started in that. It's like, people talking about vinyl, what's that all about? You see a lot of people that are vinyl heads, that's all they listen to. It's like, CDs have been out for a long time. Why would people be listening to vinyl? CDs sound better, And then the more research I did, I saw that CD decks had gotten better, and that there was a good recommendations on this Yamaha, I think it's an S300, that it's got a really good sound, and it's got an optical out and a coax out in case you want to hook up a separate DAC to it. And supposedly it's got this natural sound, which actually the natural sound to me doesn't sound very natural. But anyway, got good reviews, hooked it up. Wow, huge difference. Another big jump in performance from this to that Kenwood deck that I had used years ago. So at this point, I've got Yamaha CD deck hooked up to the Noob Sound 6P1. I look on YouTube and I see the Blue Glow series on building that KT88 amp. And I think, I could do that. I could build that. I know how to do metal fab work. That doesn't look that hard. And I think I would really enjoy it. So I ordered the parts, built that Blue Glow KT88 amp, hooked it up to the CD deck, and bam, there's another huge step up from that Noob Sound 6P1. And with those RP600M speakers, man, it sounded great. So then I started considering, what's this vinyl thing about? I want to check that out again. Because there's a lot of people that are raving about vinyl and how great it sounds. And while the CD sounds really good, there must be something to this vinyl sound, or people wouldn't still be investing in vinyl stuff, and there wouldn't be this kind of resurgence of vinyl that I'm seeing on the internet. So, called the lady up that I'd given my hi-fi gear to, and she was using the amp, but she says, yeah, I've still got your turntable in a closet over here. If you want to come get it, that's fine, because I'm not using it. I've got this other Yamaha turntable I'm using that's really nicer than that Techniques one was. And so, went over to the house, picked up that turntable, brought it home. I was going to hook it up to that KT88 amp, then realized, hey, I need some kind of a phono preamp. I knew that much, that you can't just hook the turntable up to an amplifier. So, went on eBay, bought this little $60 phono stage, hooked it up to the turntable, hooked it up, put it on a record, and it sounded horrible. I mean, really bad. And I was going, man, I know vinyl sounded better than this. Like, CDs were cleaner and they were more dynamic, but vinyl did not sound like garbage. And this sounds like garbage. So, I built that KT88 amp. I saw on eBay that 834 clone kit, and I thought to myself, well, I built this amp, I can build one of those. So I ordered that kit, was waiting and waiting and waiting. I was getting impatient. So I started looking online at other phono stages, and I found one that got really good reviews that was like discrete JFETs and all that kind of stuff that was about $800. And I said to myself, I'm going to buy one of those and hook it up and see if that's like the secret sauce that's missing. So, had to order that. He didn't have any in stock. It's going to take a while to get them. And about the same time that I'd got that EAR 834 built, the solid state one came, and I had them both sitting there. So it's like, okay, let's listen to both of these. And so, played one, then the other. They sounded really similar. The EAR 834 sounded a little richer, but it was such a giant step up from that garbage little phono preamp that I got off Amazon. So it's like, okay, there's good vinyl. Let's get a good cartridge for this turntable. So I bought a good cartridge for it. So now I've got, that Techniques turntable with a 540 ml AT cartridge with this EAR clone and that solid state preamp. I wrote the guy back. It didn't have really enough gain. That KT88's got a pretty low input sensitivity, and so it almost really needs a preamp to really sound good. And if you got a really hot phono stage, it's kind of there, but that one that was solid state just really didn't have enough gain. And I mean, it had a normal amount of gain, but it didn't have this hot output that the tube one did. And the guy was like, hey, if it doesn't have enough gain, I know what you're talking about. You sound like you know how to do electronics. I could tell you how to jumper some stuff inside it to get some more gain, but it's probably going to get noisy. If you've got something else, just send it back to me. I've got 5 people waiting in line for these things. It's not like I can't sell this to somebody else, so send it back. So I did that. So anyway, at this point where I've got a decent turntable, nice cartridge, phono stage, got the KT88 amp, and now I'm starting to compare vinyl to CDs. And I'm starting to think, yeah, wait a minute, there is something. This vinyl's sounding better than the CDs are. And that's when I realized that back then, it wasn't that the CD player was this huge jump in performance. It was that I had a crappy phono cartridge and I was using the junky phono preamp that was built into that integrated amp. And that was the problem. So, fast forward to today. Back to Brothers in Arms. Okay? So, got this deck, Got a Denafrip stack that somebody lent me to demo. So we've got supposedly really kind of state-of-the-art digital sound going on this end. Bought that 100C turntable, which is, again, a step up from that one that I had before. Mainly I can adjust the VTA, and that really brought that cartridge alive. Now I've got a MC Phonocart, got a OC9 MXL, something like that. I'll put it up here. Really nice MC with a step-up transformer with my EAR 834 clone. And then I got this Abbey Road Studio half-speed mastering of Brother in Arms. This came about a week ago. So I sat down with my CD, put it in the Yamaha deck, listened to it, then put this on the turntable. The vinyl destroys the CD. And so I've come back full circle. I've finally got a vinyl system that sounds better than anything that I can get out of digital. And that's why I keep talking about vinyl, guys. And this is what I listen to. This has got the 3D sound. And maybe I'm just going to coin this phrase. I'm calling it audio virtual reality. It's got that. This just doesn't do that. You can still hear that it's a stereo. This sounds like you're there. And I'm still just blown away that this old technology that's set up right is better than any of this digital stuff that I've been able to listen to. So, anyway, that's kind of my history. And like I said, kind of come full circle back to where I was at in 1970. And the mistake I made was buying a expensive amp because I was looking at the numbers. I wanted 100 watts. If I'd bought like a 30 watt amp and then spent some money on the phono cartridge, I would have had something. But hey, maybe back then when we were listening to ZZ Top Eliminator, the 100 watt amp was what was going to sound better because we had it turned up to 9 even with 100 watts. So there was that. So anyway, hope this has been a fun video. Wanted to share one other music selection, and I swear I've got the best subscribers of any YouTube channel on the planet. You guys are awesome. One of my viewers sent me this in the mail, and if you haven't heard this, this is freaking amazing on vinyl. I listened to it on digital through this Denafrip stack. It's not even close. Till you've heard it on vinyl, you haven't really heard what this sounds like. So if you're a vinyl user, if you don't have this yet in your collection, buy it. It comes with a really cool like phono book, which has just kind of pictures in it, which are a little silly, but it's kind of cool. And then it comes with 2 album, 33 RPM, so got a bunch of content on it. And this is just amazing sounding vinyl. So anyway, hope you're enjoying this content. If you are, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. Again, thanks all you folks that are Patreon supporters or make donations to my website. Thanks to you viewers that send me stuff like this just for me to enjoy and to showcase on the channel. And send me things like this Denafrip DAC to play with so I can know what I'm talking about here. And if you haven't really dove into vinyl yet, give it a try. I mean, I know it's not cheap. You're probably going to spend a couple of $1,000s getting a nice turntable and a decent cartridge and a nice phono stage, but there's something there that you just can't get out of this. And I know it's not as convenient, but I think that's part of the magic too. So, anyway, hope you've enjoyed this kind of side trip down memory lane. And until the next video, have a nice day.